Hey y'all, it's Mikey, and this week we're going to do a more serious topic, which is bullying week. And, I want you to leave below, like, a short story of your bullying, because I'm going to share mine, and I'd like to just read some of yours, and maybe it will be featured in our group video later this week, okay? Okay, so my bullying story started when I was in second grade. And what had happened was everybody was calling me Aunt Jemima. There was one kid who told me that he hated every black person except for Martin Luther King Jr. and Obama, which that was a few years later, but it still hurt me. Another thing that happened was I had got a kid who had sharpened his pencil and stuck it straight in my mouth, where it was grabbing onto me, poking into my cheek, and he had pushed me against the table, and I was screaming. And when it was indoor recess that day, so when the woman who had been supervising finally came in, she pulled him off of me and asked me what had happened. I had told her, and she goes, "Yeah, I'm sure that's what happened," and walked away. So it just kind of kept going throughout elementary school. In third grade, I had a teacher who, I had really bad handwriting. My family had me tested for dyslexia because I was still writing my words, my letters backwards, my numbers backwards, and I did not test positive for dyslexia. It's gotten better. I still, once in a while, will have a hard time with it, but this teacher, she gets the, kindergarten paper, she put it in a purple packet, calls me to the front of the class and goes, "Because your handwriting is so bad, you need to start writing everything in this." Well, after that, bullying in third grade just kind of was and it didn't stop. Throughout elementary school, there was a girl with autism who, she was my absolute best friend. She wouldn't talk to barely anyone except for me, and I didn't really talk to anyone except for her. And there was one kid who would make fun of her, and every single day would call her stupid, would tell her that she would never amount to everything, and when I would stand up, he would push me over into mud or whatever he could find. I kept standing up for her, and finally he stopped. But then, on the last day of 5th grade, I started crying just because middle school, I had heard terror stories about how horrible middle school could be. It was terrifying. I had the best teacher in 5th grade, who was also my 1st grade teacher. He had moved up, and I will never forget him. But I just started crying. My grandma picked me up that day, and I sat in her car and just bawled and bawled and bawled, because one of my friends had been at the school that I was going to, and she had told me about how mean some of the kids can be, and I was absolutely terrified. Well, I got to 6th grade. It wasn't really that bad, and I didn't get bullied at all until the end of the school year, when there was one girl who I thought was my friend. She had been calling me names, and finally, at the middle of April probably, and school ended mid-May that year, I had started writing down every name she called me. And by the last day, it was 3 pages front and back of every nasty name she had called me. I didn't tell anyone about it until midsummer, and I just kind of sat on the couch and cried and handed my mom the notebook. She went through it, went into the school middle of summer. There was nobody there, but she went in there, gave them the notebook. My principal, he retired last year. He kept it in his room, and he would bring it up every time that I said that anything had happened. He would be like, "Well, it could be worse, just remember this." And that's what really kept me from thinking that stuff could really be that bad again. At the beginning of 7th grade, this girl had grabbed my hair, twisted it up around her hand, and slammed me into a locker. I didn't really say much about it. I told my mom, Then this other girl had called me some nasty names, including the B name. Then there was one guy who was my best friend, and well, he had groped me at the beginning of the year, and I didn't say anything at all to anyone. And then a few days later, he was coming up on a girl who I was really close with and told me to be quiet because she was really jumpy and I knew that it would scare her. So I just kind of tapped her on the shoulder and well, he had like been just like, shh, shh, I'm gonna jump on her, and I tapped her on the shoulder like, he's about to jump you. So she turned around and he grabbed me on my arm really tight and slammed me into one of the brick walls in the school. And that day I had enough. I went into the principal, told the principal, they called his parents and they called my mom in. My dad was on the phone. The police were called. They said that they couldn't do anything because I didn't report the groping right away, but they still weren't going to do anything about him slamming me into a brick wall. Well, that girl, she waited for us after school, and she had walked out with me, and we had went to my house. We went into my room and I took off my jacket because I didn't want the police officer or my principals to see the bruise I had left. And when I took it off, he had left hand marks, one here, and he had squeezed so tight that his handprint was left on my skin. On my other arm, there was a bruise that was like right there from him slamming me. And I showed my mom. She was ready to pull me from school that day. And I said, no, I can deal with them. I know how to protect myself if anything happens again. And nothing really happened that much after that. I mean, most of my friends were against me because I called the police. I had the police called on him. And I mean, it was about probably 2.5 months of only having that one girl as my friend. Everyone else was turned on me because they thought that he was in the right. And I don't really understand that still to this day. Then this year, I have had no bullying at all. And I'm really happy about that. And then we soon will be starting a bullying page, so keep watching, and probably by the group video, we'll have a link for that. So thank you, love you, bye.
Step one, you say we need to talk. He walks, you say sit down, it's just talk. He smiles.